If you've only just joined us, you're watching the Daily Roundup with Nina. Now we're talking to the Bank of Namibia, who's calling on stakeholders to propose input into the reviewed general regulations on building societies. To talk to us about this latest development, I'm now joined by Deputy Director of Policy and Regulations, Mr. Elifas Kamati, in the Banking Supervision Department at the Bank of Namibia. Mr. Kamati, good evening and welcome.
Good evening, Nina. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. In layman's terms, Mr. Kamati, explain to us what is meant by building societies.
When you're talking about a building society, we're talking about an institution that is founded by its members and accepts money from the public, which we call deposits, with the sole purpose of extending loans to build houses. That's actually what a building society is.
All right. Can you give us some examples of institutes like this?
At the moment, we don't have any in the market, but the one probably that you can remember is Swabo that we had some few years ago.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And what role does the Bank of Namibia play exactly in regulating building societies, and also, what's the importance thereof?
The three aspects comes to my mind. Number one, we should make sure that at the entry of such institution in our market, it complies with all the requirements. That's number one. Number two, when that institution is registered, we as a Bank of Namibia conduct on-site inspection on regular basis and off-site analysis. And the purpose is really simple. We just want to make sure that this institution conducts its business prudently and in accordance with the regulations and the laws that we are administering.
Building societies in Namibia are currently administered under the Building Societies Act of 1986. What does the Act entail, if you can just tell us in a nutshell?
Thank you, Nina. The Act deals with a number of issues. I'll just mention the most important one, 3 or 4. Number one, it deals with the registration of building societies, the requirements thereof. That's number one. Number two, it deals with the governance of such building societies. In other words, the rules that governs the administration of the society. And number three, it deals with reporting requirements and the manner in which such building society should be examined by the Bank of Namibia.
And what prompted the need for the revision of this act, especially since we don't have any active building society, as you mentioned earlier?
Maybe I should mention that as a Bank of Namibia, we as a regulator review our laws on regular basis just to make sure that they remain relevant and responsive in the market that we are operating. The current act is very, very old. It was issued 30 years ago, and the regulations that we are revising at the moment was issued some 42 years ago. Therefore, it's very, very imperative that we review these laws to make sure that they are really in accordance with the relevant market.
Yeah, and you've called for stakeholders to give their input in this. Why is stakeholder involvement so important?
So, as the Bank of Namibia, Nina, we have adopted what we call a consultative approach. Whatever laws that we are bringing in or issuing, we consult our stakeholders. And therefore, it's really relevant and important that we obtain inputs from our stakeholders, such that the laws that we are issuing have inputs from the wider public.
And how can the stakeholders go about, submitting their recommendations?
There are various, especially 2 ways, if I may. Number one, they may submit their inputs via emails to policyconsultations@bon.com.na. And number two, they can call me, Elifas Kamati, at the Bank of Namibia at 0661-283-5011. And they can then seek any clarification that they want.
And what's the window period for them to be able to do this?
See, the window opens yesterday already, and they can provide their inputs up to the 16th of September. So they have ample time really to provide inputs on this important document.
Mr. Kamati, just finally, what challenges does the current legal framework pose on the building societies, and how does it reflect on the current, realities?
Yeah, as I said, the current legal framework is very, very old. It poses a lot of challenges. The most important ones relates to financial requirements. For example, it's deemed as prohibitive when it comes to deposits, because it's really prescribing how a building society should accept a deposit. And number two, it also prescribes how such building societies should borrow money from a banking institution. So those are some of the prohibitive provisions that are found in the current law. And the views that I express currently is that with those restrictive provisions, building societies may not be able really to run a successful business.
So thank you for your time this evening. Thank you for being on the Daily Roundup.
Thank you very much, Nina, for having me. Thank you.
That was Mr. Elifas Kamati from the Bank of Namibia speaking to us there. We're going to take a short break, and in between that, let's take a look at our Global News Roundup.